What's up, filmmakers? It's Justin Romine here. Welcome back to the channel. We got a really unique video for y'all today. First time we've ever done anything like this on the channel. And you can see I have somebody right here next to me.
Hello, my name is Grayson.
Yeah, he is interning for me. He's about a month in, and I had a special project for him. I wanted to do a little bit of a challenge. I was like, you know what? I have some peanut butter, some unopened peanut butter in the cabinet, and I'm like, hey, Grayson, how about this? You can use my Canon R6 in any of the lenses that I own, that are any gear really in my closet. You can use any of it. And what you have to do is film a peanut butter commercial, some type of promo involving natural whey peanut butter, which happens to be the peanut butter that's in my pantry. The other half of this challenge is I had Grayson bring over his Canon Rebel T6, right?
Yep.
Which is funny because I think I started on the Canon Rebel T6i, which just has the flip out screen. So this camera retails for $549 right now. As y'all probably know, the Canon R6 just came out. It retails for $24.99. So a little bit of a price difference, right? Just a smidge.
Yeah.
Ultimately answering the question, does gear matter? It's like the most overrated question in the filmmaking world. And I had to film my version of the same peanut butter commercial that I was having him film. The only difference was I can't use any of my gear. I had to use his Canon Rebel T6. And that was all the stipulations I put on this challenge. So what we're gonna do is we're going to show you back to back his video, then my video, and then afterwards we're gonna break down some really hot topic questions that I came up with for y'all. So we can kind of break down the videos and what our thought process was. So without further ado, check out Grayson's natural whey peanut butter commercial filmed on the Canon R6. You know that moment when you're hungry and you want to go back to your roots and make a delicious PB&J? Or just eat the peanut butter straight out of the jar like no one's looking. Natural whey peanut butter. No jelly or bread required. All right, so those were the videos. It was definitely an interesting challenge to be able to give Grayson my beloved Canon R6 and have him film this video without my supervision. I didn't help him at all on this project. For me to go back to my roots and shoot on the Canon Rebel T6 and have to try to make it work after being exposed to all of this high-end gear. I mean, we're shooting on the Komodo right now. It's a completely different game, but some of the basic principles like still apply. Like this is where the learning starts, you know? So let's go ahead and talk through the first question, which is, what was your thought process before you began filming this commercial?
Right, so the first thought was really, what was the project? And the project that you gave me was to shoot a product-based commercial based on the peanut butter in your pantry, the one that you had, which happened to be natural whey. The way I kind of went about thinking about how to film this was the name. First of all, natural whey, that could be a really good indicator of kind of the style I would want to film it in. So something a little more lighthearted, maybe something to do with nature. So incorporate more naturalistic type of compositions in my shots. So before I started filming, I went and kind of got some inspiration from some other very similar type of product commercials, mainly like those kind of like Sprite, some like super poppy, kind of upbeat types of product commercials that had a lot of cuts, quick cuts, a lot of speed ramps, a lot of like things to kind of get you going. That's kind of my thought processes I put into this project before I even started filming.
Gotcha. And a lot of that sounds like it's videos that you like watching anyways,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
what you were like searching for, was what's something that I like?
Something that I
And
like
then-
and something that's also successful.
Yeah, exactly. Next question is, during filming, what were some challenges that you faced?
So I think one of the biggest challenges is not from the gear perspective, but from the me perspective. I think my lack of experience in handling some of the newer, more expensive type of gear definitely hindered the product that came out. I think there was definitely a lack of organization in the ways that I filmed. I kind of interlaced 24 frames a second film with higher frame rates like 16, 120, and I didn't film those back to back. So I would have a 24 frame shot here and then a 60 frame shot here. Very confusing when I got back to that. Yeah, very sporadic. So definitely a lack of organization in terms of challenges during filming. Those would probably be the most prominent.
Yeah, and a lot of these things, like, you can learn about them like on YouTube or in school. Experience like trumps all that.
Very
Like,
much so.
If you had the experience of doing this, and the only way to get experience is by doing. That's
Correct.
so true. So that's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad we did this challenge. Next question: how did you approach your edit? Were there any struggles?
So in my approach to starting to edit this project, I think the very most important part and the very first thing that I did was find music, because that directed the way I filmed and thought about the things of how I wanted the shots to move with, the beat or the music. So that's kind of how I went straight into editing, was the music first. It was heavily music inspired.
Did you look up the music before you started filming, or was that before you started editing?
Before I started filming.
Before you started
Yeah,
filming?
before I started filming.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
so that inspired your filming.
Yeah, that was a little bit of the thought process as well,
Okay.
was the music. As far as some of the, I would say, struggles during my editing, would be, again, was lack of organization. My clips were kind of all over the place. I had some really cool ideas for some shots, but they were just completely out of order. So when I got back into the editing bay, there was just a really dark shot and a really light shot, and everything was just kind of mixed matched, and I had to, it took a lot of time to organize that out. And 100%, I think the worst thing that came out of that was my color grading. It's incredible how much of a difference it can make and how detrimental it can be to a film. It can make it or it can break it very, very, very easily and very quickly. Especially working with DaVinci Resolve, there are so many good tools, little variables that you can play with that
It's a big learning curve.
It's a
for
very
you.
big learning curve.
Big learning curve.
And so jumping into that at the deep end, blind.
Yeah, and like full disclosure on my end, like I had taught Grayson very minimal things, and as far as color grading, like I showed you some basic stuff, but not a whole lot of like even taking C-Log, which is mainly what he shot in, and like being able to color grade that from scratch. So it's also an opportunity for me to see what he's doing kind of incorrectly or not as well as he should be doing, and correct him and teach him the right way of doing things. So hopefully he can gain some knowledge there. So another big thing that we haven't told you yet is that this was actually Grayson's like second edit of the same basic style video. The first video, there were some issues like with frame rates.
Yep.
You didn't interpret the footage correctly.
Yep.
You filmed at 60 frames a second, and he was struggling to be able to slow the clip down, because he knew, all right, I shot in a high frame rate, but how do I slow that clip down, make it look smooth and buttery? Because we do all of our projects in 23.976. So yeah, that's a big thing. Last question, if you could go back and do this project right now, is there anything that you would have done differently?
I'm sure there's a lot of things that I would do differently. I think definitely, and I know I've said it a million times, but just organization from pre to post production and everywhere in between, in terms of kind of my shot composition and even just the vision that I was trying to have. It was very scatterbrained. It was all about just cool shots, and it wasn't about kind of a concise story. Even if there's not a narrative, there's still a story, I believe. I also think that it could have used a lot more of the human element because it is this natural way peanut butter. You know, I want it to feel natural, to be connected to, you know, nature and whatnot. So I wanted, if I were to do anything different, I think I would put either more of myself or more of somebody, you know, else to
Or
have
like a duck.
Yeah, yeah.
A duck, something natural.
So
Get
the
some
duck-
nature in there. Get a bear.
A duck in Texas.
Yeah. Oh, we got him right down the street.
The last thing that I would have done different is straight up filmed more shots, more everything, because it is so much easier to cut things out than to try to salvage things from a little bit of video. And so
That's
filming
advice of the day right there.
filming less is much worse than filming too much.
Preach. All right, so that's some really good insight from Grayson and his experience and breakdown of how he filmed this video and what the thought process was. Now I'm gonna answer the same questions about the video that I produced, but first, how long did it take you to film this and edit from like the pre-production, production, and post? How long, start to finish?
So everything put together, I would say somewhere in the rough range of, I want to say 4 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's about right.
Around 4 hours.
Yeah, between filming, editing,
Yep.
and the whole bit. For me, before we dive into the same questions, we were actually leaving. We had a flight to Savannah the day that we filmed this, and I got back kind of late from like running some errands. So I think start to finish, it took me maybe an hour and a half, I would say, between, all right, grab the gear, think about what I'm gonna do, film it, and then edit it, find the music, the whole bit. A big time difference there from amateur to professional, that type thing. So there's a lot of like skill to be learned, and you get quicker the more you do it.
So now that you've heard from me, Justin, I'd like to ask you the same questions. What was your thought process kind of going into this project and even before filming? Like what was going on?
Thinking back to when I did this challenge for you, I didn't even think that it would be like a challenge where I'm gonna have to film the same thing. I kind of had this vision for like, I wanted to put your skills to the test and really challenge you. But then I'm like, all right, well, let me do this Canon Rebel T6 and try to create the same video and see how it turns out type thing. When we got to that point that I was needing to create the video, I'm like, oh crap, this is actually a pretty hard challenge. I'm like,
Yeah.
you just got to create something from nothing, right? Knowing the camera that I have, I knew going into it that I'm gonna have to maximize this camera's potential because it doesn't have, you know, the larger sensor that the Canon R6 has. It doesn't have certain elements. I'm using the kit lens that came with it, which is an 18 to 55. There was gonna be some limitations with the camera. So I'm like, all right. And I knew that I didn't wanna create like a hype, flashy promo style because that would require me to set up, you know, my backdrop and get some lights involved. And I really wasn't allowing myself to use lights or anything like that. I was trying to just produce the video with the Canon Rebel T6. So being able to come up with that, I knew it had to have story. Story was the biggest thing. I didn't know what type of story or where I was gonna go with it, but I knew it had to have story, whether it be funny or not. So to be honest, I didn't really know where the story was going, but once I figured that out in the filming, I kind of based the voiceover that you heard, I based it off of that.
Nice. Okay. So now that we've gotten kind of like what got you to the idea of your filming, while you were filming, what kind of issues did you come across? If you came across any.
So some of my challenges that I faced were having to relearn the Canon Rebel T6. I mean, I had experience, like that was the first camera, like I said, that I started on. I knew it was Canon and I knew somewhat how to work it, but the menu, everything's like a little bit different on the camera. And it's definitely a big, you know, downgrade, obviously, from the Canon R6. So I almost had to familiarize myself again with that camera. And something that I didn't even expect to have an issue with was autofocus. The autofocus on that camera, it's there, but it's not really reliable.
No.
And not very good. So I had to kind of make do. I actually put the lens on manual focus the whole time and had to manual focus everything, which when you're filming yourself, by yourself, that gets really challenging, trying to manual focus. Actually, that that last shot, that final shot where I'm licking the peanut butter, I had to film that like 5 times because I kept going back, rewatching the footage that I took, and it was out of focus. And it was like, the focus throw on this camera is just like, that's the focus right there. That's the focus. And so there's like no room. What is that, like an inch?
Yep.
You get an inch throughout the entire focal range. So that was a challenge. And another thing that I didn't really expect to have, I'm like taking for granted on the R6, was I go to plug in a microphone and there's no mic jack. This is not a mic jack. This is like for a remote flash or something. And I will admit that I did cheat a little bit. I recorded the audio internal on the camera, but then I used an external microphone. I used the Rode VideoMic Pro and actually recorded it onto the Deity HDTX. So I used the external recorder for audio and then had to manually sync all that up in post.
Nice. So now that you've
How now, brown cow? How now, brown cow?
So after your numerous amounts of shots and probably too much peanut butter to talk about.
Oh, it was good though.
It was good?
Yeah, it was great.
What was your approach to editing what you made? And did you have any struggles in the edits?
So for me, editing and filming goes so hand in hand. I'm constantly thinking about the edit in mind whenever I'm like filming. I was only getting the shots that I knew that I would need for the edit from what this vision was. But like I said before, I didn't really have a vision going into it, so it was hard. I was like, all right, let me film myself from a unique angle, going into the pantry, gonna look for a peanut butter. Let me make like a PB&J. As I'm editing, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna include some type of voiceover for this. So I kind of filmed knowing that there was gonna be a narrator over me talking. So I got the shots I needed to be able to narrate, but I didn't want to script out the voiceover until I got the edit pretty nailed down.
Yeah.
And then I would say in the edit, one of the hardest parts for me was to find the right music to match the mood that I was going for. I went on Epidemic Sound and you do the filters, and I wanted something classical. I wanted something a little bit more quirky. It also doesn't flow exactly to your video that you're like producing. So it's very much a song editing game as it is a video editing game, right? Trying to find the moments in that song to match and cut them to the video that I'm creating. And I didn't do that until the end, after I've kind of already edited the video. Like, I think I had the whole video edited, and then I went back through and added the sound and cut the sound to match the vibe. Because you'll notice in my video, it has like some build-up moments and some lingering moments, and then some like, you're taking somebody through a story. So you want the song to convey the emotion that you're trying to convey in the story.
And so now that it's all over, and I think it looked great. Now that it's all over, would you have done anything different?
Yeah, I would have used the Canon R6.
Well,
well, that's it for me, folks. I would have tried to light the scenes a little bit better that I was filming, although I did kind of restrict myself to not really using a whole lot of gear. It just could have made the video better. Like, if you're trying to maximize this potential, it's not always about like getting the right settings in here, but it's about setting up your scene how you need it to look. That way the cinematography and the video just comes out so much cleaner. That could have been better. I would have changed up the framing on a few of the different shots, like especially when I went in for the peanut butter and I'm coming up and I'm about to like lick it. Right then, I would have cut to a tighter shot, my eyeballs and like the peanut butter like in my mouth. That's about all I can think of.
No, I mean, that's great feedback. Yeah.
I mean, what do you think I should have done different?
It's hard to tell.
So these are always good things to do, is to go back and reflect. It's called like self-reflection, right? So you go back, you actually look at your work and you're brutally honest kind of with yourself, is to ask yourself these questions. And I'll put the questions in the description below if you want to use this for yourself or somebody else that you want to share this with. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. Did you learn anything on this challenge?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I need to do more and learn more.
I guess we got to do this again. So if you like this kind of video, just let me know. Drop me a comment down below. We're just gonna be here drinking coffee, talking about making videos. So cheers, y'all.
Cheers.